excellent day for an exorcism.
I see dead people.
Suffering will be legendary, even in hell.
It's alive!
Fear on Film. Hi, I'm Joe, and welcome to a special bonus episode of Fear on Film. Today we have Jay Reid, director of Sick Puppy.
I can't believe you married John Gilbert.
Happy anniversary, baby bird.
You had all the boys eating out of the palm of your hand. Why him?
I don't wanna sleep alone.
He was so sweet.
His words where I'm home.
He told me that he'd protect me.
I can't wrap my head around anyone.
He's just different.
What's wrong, sweetie? Is he screwing around on you?
Not exactly.
You gotta get his eyes back on the prize then.
How do I do that?
Figure out what your man wants and then give it to him on a regular basis so he becomes dependent on you.
Why is there a lock on the door?
Alrighty, Jay, well, welcome, and thanks so much for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, like I was telling you a little earlier before we started recording, this was quite an experience. Sick Puppy was it was very well. I guess it's kind of a sick puppy of a film. It was really good.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, really enjoyed it. Very dark comedy, then some psychological elements as well. Now, Sick Puppy reportedly is inspired by a real life case.
I think it was kind of inspired by multiple cases, but when I was like, I guess, maybe early teens, maybe like 12 or something like that, there was a serial killing couple in Canada that were, I think at the point they were either on trial or they'd just been caught, and they were they were called the Cannon Barbie Killers, but their real names were Paul Bernardo and Carla Homolka. Now, I didn't base the characters off of them, but that idea of this woman sort of standing by her kind of serial killing boyfriend and then participating in the murder is always just kind of like haunted and stuck with me. And it was a really big case in Canada. It was very controversial subject, and that idea kind of stuck with me. And then I'd seen this movie called The Honeymoon Killers, which was just this like Martin Scorsese actually got fired off that movie, but it was kind of like this really great movie I found on the Criterion Collection, and it was also about these real life killers. It was sort of like a little campy, but also like kind of pretty dark. I noticed like that there's a lot, they were based off the Lonely Hearts Killers, and there was a lot of these like killer couples throughout history, and they made like some movies about them. I think a lot of them, inspired sort of natural born killers and all those things. So it really just became a subject that fascinated me. So I read up about all these stories. So they're not based off these two particular characters, because I don't think that, for me, they wouldn't be as interesting. I wanted to create like original characters also, so I could do like more of a little satirical edge, because you don't want to do that with real stories, and I don't think that would work as well. So yeah, it's based off like a bunch of them, but that story, that original story about those killers, kind of stuck with me, and started it was like the kernel.
Yeah. Well, it definitely has that satirical comedic edge, little John Waters, if you will.
Yep. Yep.
And it kind of brought to mind what was it? I think it was Serial Mom. I think it was
Oh,
called.
yeah. I love that one. Yeah, that's a good
Yeah,
one. Yeah.
and and I love it. But what I really like about your film is how your core thematic elements of regarding relationships. You could take the core of what this relationship is going through and transplant it in a regular drama, same ideas, and I think that's what makes it relatable and more effective. In that, yeah, we obviously can't relate to serial killers, but we can relate to the relationship and marriage issues that Charlie and John are having, and I really enjoy that aspect of it.
Yeah, it's definitely like an important part to because you're following like these two kind of demented killers and it's important to have something that is even slightly relatable. Now, there are some people who after they see some of the stuff that they do just at the beginning that is like I'll never relate to these people. But
Right.
for a lot of people, I try to complicate it morally by having these real things that they're going through, especially when it comes to Charlie, because she's like sort of like the protagonist in a lot of ways for this, even though
Mhm.
it's kind of she's also quite complicated and morally ambiguous. And
Mhm.
I think that it's important to have something like that that's relatable. Like I put stuff in my from my own relationships, but instead of having like for example like he's going down and killing people in the basement and stuff, and he's kind of leaving her off and like that emotional isolation. And as a writer and creative, sometimes you would find yourself like doing stuff like that, just being like, hey, I gotta go to write, they want to spend time, and you're just like, this is important to me. Now, obviously, I took that and went off and did something nasty with it, but it's still that same emotional isolate. You're choosing something else over your partner, and it's not right. You have to kind of find that balance, and
Mhm.
and it's yeah, but of course I had him choose serial killing, which even complicates it even more. So
Right. Well, it's
uh,
that relationship relatability, I think, that has us kind of in the corner of Charlie and John, kind of rooting for them. I mean, where they come close to getting caught at one point, and you're like, no, no, no. You're kind of like, and then you
yeah,
catch yourself. You're like, whoa, hold the phones here.
yeah,
Why am I rooting for these brutal people? Now, balancing again a domestic drama and a
mm,
serial killer film and deadpan absurdism is
yeah.
it's quite a task. What
Yeah.
was your biggest challenge in the editing room to ensure that the tone didn't fully alienate the audience?
Oh, that's tough. Like I still don't know if it's like completely it's just like at a certain point you just kind of have to like let it go. I think there was initial edits. We had a couple of editors actually because it did take a lot of edits to kind of refine that tone because the beginning edits were quite melodramatic and also just like really like comedic, and it
Mhm.
just didn't have that sort of edge to it that I kind of wanted, where it was not like it they were a little bit more balanced. So like there was some humor that was just like goofy, like it wasn't dark humor, it was just goofy humor. And my second editor kind of came in and he's like, yeah, this stuff is a little pedestrian. I think the great stuff is like the really black, gallows humor in it. And he pulled out all the like really overly dramatic and also all the like overly comedic stuff and kind of found like the right balance because obviously there's an element of camp in this. Like you mentioned John Waters, he's like one of my favorite, he's one of my heroes, and I
Mhm.
think that the difference is like I tried to do something a little bit more on the serious side in those dramatic scenes, but you still want to have that little balance of the campiness and the dark humor and just and keeping up with like relatable character moments. Of course, you want to make
Mhm.
sure that the characters are incredibly relatable. So I found it incredibly difficult, and we went through multiple edits. I think we sent it out to like a few, I don't know, like a dozen people, and we got like lots of feedback, and I kind of figured out where the movie was. I actually kind of like at a certain point we re-edited from scratch almost. We kept a lot of like the main
Mhm.
bits that were like tightly edited. It's just like I think moving things around a lot.
Well, I definitely believe you established that solid balance, and I don't think audiences, at least true horror fiends
Yeah,
and people into these kind of films, yeah, there's no alienation whatsoever. Again,
yeah,
and also the way you pepper very lightly, just enough the absurd
mhm,
humor. I mean, I love the
yeah.
running gag with 90 Day Fiance.
Yeah, yeah. That's one of my favorite bits. I fought for
Yeah,
that one.
it worked, man, because I'm not kidding. Throughout the film, I'm mortified. I'm like, holy crap! Some of the stuff I was seeing,
Yeah.
I'm like, Jay crossed the line here.
Yeah.
But it works, and I found myself just involuntarily chuckling throughout
Yeah.
the film, and again catching myself. I mean, should I be laughing at this?
Yeah.
But it really landed for me. Now let's talk about the difficult approach and task of treating Charlie's denial and codependency as genuine rather than a caricature.
Yeah. So for me, like we talked about like a lot of like absurdity in the film, and I think that the absurdity comes from a very real place of denial. The idea that she thinks that they can go off and live this like suburban life. She's like kind of not let go of that, and she's had trauma in her own past, and she's kind of found this person who supported her, and now over the years she discovered like he's just as bad as the people that kind of hurt her in her past, and she just completely she can't deal with it, and so it separates, and she kind of like, oh, he's not so bad, oh, he's just he can change. And I think a lot of people, and I'm not saying, like it's not just women, men too, think that sometimes they can change certain aspects of their partner instead of
Mhm.
accepting them, or there's a situation where it's toxic, and you did just deny. I've seen that like a lot, and it's
Mhm.
it's it's really kind of horrifying. But you kind of go, how can they stay with this person? It's insane. And
Mhm.
but I wanted to not approach that from that judgmental standpoint, because as a person, sometimes you're just like, oh, well, why is he still with them? Like,
Mhm.
but I wanted to actually go in and kind of try to figure it out. And I don't know if I did, but try to figure out why she would remain in this situation despite everything, that she's been dealing with, to like that's saying get out.
Mhm.
And I think what's interesting is it you see it does have a psychological effect, and she breaks in the movie. So it's like
Mhm.
I think it was very important to have that absurd, delusional attitude come from a very real place, and
Mhm.
that's like character based.
Yeah, and I totally bought into her. I mean, like you stated, I mean, people might ask why she's still with this guy.
Hmm.
I I bought into it with I mean, you established with very subtle way, very minimalist, that with her character and cultivating her motives and why she's still with him. I bought into it. I felt that yeah, she really loved him without explaining and going to so much expository. I mean, we get into some of when she's telling her friend, well, that's where he started calling me baby bird and stuff. And like,
Yeah.
oh, how cute and stuff. But it's minimal, but it's
Hmm.
just enough that, and of course, Natasha Callis. Wow, she really, really sold it.
Yeah.
I mean, she knocked it out the park. So yeah, the denial, and again, I think because it's all anchored and rooted in very relatable thematic elements of relationships and the
Hmm.
difficulty of and defining who you are, who you're not, trying to change for that person, or are you changing for yourself? And it really builds a solid foundation for the horror element. In fact, you've described the film yourself, I believe, right, as a love story disguised as a horror film.
Yes, yeah. It's so messed up because actually, I think so. I've written like quite a few scripts and over the years, and they all deal in a certain way with like sort of weird, sometimes occasionally unhealthy relationships. But this is the first one where I feel like I wrote two characters that actually genuinely loved each other
Hmm.
in a messed up way. Like that's I think that's kind of what keeps it going. You don't understand why, but they like he tries, he makes an effort to change despite all
Uh-huh.
evidence to the contrary. Like he tries to you know become a different person for her. Obviously that goes horribly wrong or there would be
Hmm.
no movie. But
Right.
it was interesting to write some characters who just generally had some like affection for each other, and had they not had this horrible aspect to their relationship, I think they would be, I think they tried to be good people, but they're just not. That's just the way it is.
Yeah. Well, it's been a banner year, from what I'm seeing for
Yeah.
relationship films. I mean,
Oh yeah.
Obsession
Oh
and
yeah.
now it's your film.
Yeah.
Um and but one thing I want to mention, your cast,
Hmm.
spearheaded by Natasha Callis and Brett
Yep.
Geddes.
Yep.
These two, wow. It's and Brett Geddes, uh, he emoted this sensitive kind of guy with real feelings, and a really nice guy, but yet so brutal at the same time. And again, it harkens back to what we discussed earlier about balance. This movie is totally about balance, and it resonates through. I mean, and I think they both balance, both of them, different aspects of relationships in such a unique and powerful way. So yeah, I mean, just an amazing performance by both of them.
Yeah, there's no movie without them.
Yeah.
They're I they had actually not even like read a single line together before because I cast them separately and in different ways, and it was only when like I did like I think I did a day of rehearsal in the house before we actually shot. And I was like, oh, I hope these people have chemistry. I really hope so. That's like, I mean, it's kind of the thing where you can work on it, but like we didn't have enough time for that. So I was
Mhm.
just like, I just hope these. I knew that they were both very strong actors, so I think if you're strong actors, you'll make the chemistry, and they had it. So I was very happy with that.
Oh, absolutely. Now, what else were you looking for in in the casting process for the husband and wife in this?
Well, I think Charlie was probably the hardest to cast. We had a lot of like, because it's not not exactly like the nicest role
Right.
for some people, and a lot of women had some issues with the role because they're just like they can't like understand why she stays with him, of course. So, but I think Natasha was great because she didn't necessarily judge the character. She's like
Mhm.
obviously completely different, just like Brett is. Brett's like the sweetest guy, and he's definitely nothing like John. But Natasha brought this empathy, and she kind of understood the script right off the bat. She understood the humor, and she understood that to make Charlie relatable, she kind of had to be like trying to be a good person. She thinks she's a good person. Like she doesn't like she's not trying to harm anyone. She just kind of, is in denial and pushing this stuff away. Whereas, the casting of Brett was also quite challenging, but actually I found Brett during the casting process pretty early on, and one of the reasons I cast him aside from the fact he's a great actor, and I knew he was willing to do some crazy stuff because I don't know if you've ever seen him on The Boys, but he had a couple of episodes where he just did like the grossest stuff on that. So,
Right.
so if he understood the dark humor of The Boys, then he's
Yeah.
definitely somebody who was capable of doing it. But he was the only one who didn't play the role like a cool person. Like everyone else tried to be like this, like I don't know, slick serial killer. Like, I don't know why they're trying to be cool about it. Like it's written on the page exactly how it is. And Brett was the only one who got like that childlike, attitude, like that little innocence to him that kind of made it a little bit ridiculous and funny, but also like it gave him, it made him a little bit more likable considering what he does in the film.
Hmm.
And so he was the only one who got that.
Yeah, because there's a scene where it's their anniversary, and here he comes back home from work, and
Hmm.
he has this really stern, intense expression on his face,
Mm.
and she's there in her little nightgown or whatever, and all sexy, and had a nice dinner, and I expected him to maybe lose his shit or kind of like be
Yeah,
dark, and then he
yeah,
just softens up
yeah,
like a big like a big teddy bear. He's like,
yeah,
oh. Real, oh my! I'm like, wow, this is great. I loved it. Now, talking about performances, there was
mm,
another standout performance in this.
yeah,
Rachel Boyd
yeah, yeah.
as Mia. She was hilarious.
Oh, we that one. She was the first video I saw, and after that, like I actually like, I went through and we watched every single video, and there were some really great actresses. Like that one that was a lot more of a challenge, but something about Rachel's, and I'm so glad because she actually has a very good like friendship with Brett, and it's really kind of funny. Like she was already teasing him uh, from the get go. Like I think she messaged him on Facebook and said, "How's it going, cat killer?" or something like that.
Right,
And
right.
yeah, so she was really totally like down to go like insane, but she was also very helpful because there was like I think she has like a speech towards the end, and the speech was pretty much intact as I wrote it, but she made some small changes, and she said like this is how I approach it, and so I was willing to hear like I actually take a lot of stuff from actors. If my idea is if you can do something that's better than what I have down there, then it goes in the movie. And so she was really contributed to her character, and she was, I mean, she's definitely, she went all like, I think Mia is the character I would say I'm the closest to being a little bit of a provocateur,
Hmm.
but the one I love the most, and she found a nice balance like between like being like annoying of course as the character is supposed to be annoying as serial killer, but also like there's something real there, and especially like in certain scenes where there's violence, you can
Hmm.
see the child, teenager kind of come out there,
Hmm.
and she's incredible in this as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, this that role could have easily been either A, forgettable, or B, not really work, because it's a very tricky part that she plays.
Hmm.
And she has to dig deep to emote these characteristics of a bratty teenager
Yeah,
with attitude and everything. And yeah, I mean, she smashed it. She really
yeah,
did. The part that just okay, I just lost it. I started laughing. I thought it was so funny. Was she, without giving out anything? She's in a situation where of obvious disadvantage, and she basically lets him have it. She tells him, she gives him the middle finger and all. And I love that scene. And but yeah, she was she was great. She, like I said, another situation, this character would have been just there, but she really made it pop and memorable. Yeah.
yeah. I think she kind of just it's a certain type of movie until she arrives, and then she kind
Mhm.
of actively tries to destroy that movie. So it's really she kind of just blows everything up along with Dylan as Dale. So like I think those characters kind of blow the existing sort of romantic movie up.
Right, and there's a little bit of Lolita in her character as
Oh
well.
yeah, yeah. I think I even mentioned it in the movies. It's like there's definitely, yeah, for sure.
Y- Yeah. Now, Sick Puppy uniquely flips the dynamic of women as victims in traditional horror. Was it a conscious goal to defy typical slasher and thriller tropes regarding women in peril?
Yeah, I mean, over the years they've kind of gone a little bit. They've gotten a lot better about that
Hmm.
sort of thing. I feel like they're giving them more to do instead of just being like running around, screaming. And I think that my idea was that while they're, some of these women have been very these just strong female characters like Jamie Lee Curtis's character and in the Halloween, especially the Halloween sequels, or Nev Campbell's character in the Scream movies. Like they've made them very very strong, but I wanted to also make them a little bit more morally ambiguous. They're a little, give them opportunities to play characters like Walter White, where it's a little bit more complicated. They're not just like this strong, positive female influence where they're playing these characters that you're like, oh, I'm not so sure about this person,
Right.
but also still having that strength, not being a perfect person, not being, a symbol, but like a real person.
Right, right. Yeah, now Sick Puppy has incredibly raw, high stakes emotional beats and some stuff that I mean, yeah, like I said earlier, you cross some lines which can be quite disturbing for, actors on a set. What kind of environment did you try to foster on the set to make actors feel safe enough to push those boundaries?
So, what was nice is we all met up before, like for a day of rehearsal. Not all of us, but I definitely think that there was a lot of conversations beforehand with like the main actors. And if we're talking about like some of the one of the victims who has to go through a lot in that she was just a champ.
Mhm.
We were very clear beforehand what was going to be happening, and of course we have especially like not just raw like emotional stuff, but also like with some of the content we had. Of course, we had a stunt coordinator, but we also had an intimacy coordinator who was the same kind of person
Mhm.
because there's a lot of overlap, as you might have noticed,
Mhm.
between those. And I think it was like there was no, it was just like a professional set. Like obviously we were, strapped for money, strapped for time, so it was just like we just had to blast through it a lot of the time.
Mhm.
But we always took our time with those type of scenes, whether it's like an emotional scene or a scene like the stuff in the basement, we would always take our time with those ones specifically to give the actors the space to do what they needed to do, and make sure that they felt safe to do that and allowed them, um, the freedom to explore like the deepest, parts of their, kind of emotional journey.
Yeah, because I mean, a lot of people may not get this. I mean, they'll watch a film and they'll say, "Oh, well, it's just acting." They should, they of course they feel safe, but that's not always the situation. I mean, I've heard of and read stories of horrific rape sequences where the actress would be very kind of traumatized by it. So it is they are pretty tough on the talent as well, I'm sure.
Yep. Yes, absolutely. That's why it was good to have like our intimacy coordinator was on set every day just because it was just such a like you say, it's like it's an emotional even the scenes without like nudity or any of that stuff, you want to have this intimacy coordinator because she brought this great energy, and she and I worked closely with the actors, and it was good because when you're doing something low budget like this, you want to sometimes you forget to do like things where the actors will you're just trying to get the shot right.
Hmm.
And what's nice is she was able to slow things down, say, hey, let's take our time, do this. And it was very, very helpful to me. But yeah, like doing those scenes, I was very glad. Like the actress was just fantastic. Madeline, she was like totally game. She knew exactly what we were going to be shooting. She knew the angles. She knew what was there. And she was just like, I'm just going to try to make this the most like emotionally honest performance I can.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, and yeah, it's pretty disturbing some of the and it works. I mean, now this movie surprisingly has very little gore. I was expecting a lot more. Now you've mentioned that you prefer leaving it, more to the imagination, say in the style of Toby Hooper from, who did
Yep.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre, rather than go in for that relentless, over the top gore. Now sometimes that works. I mean, Damien Leone's Terrifier, it works, but
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, but I've seen films where they go that over the top, and I found myself saying to myself, that wasn't necessary. Now, how did you work with your makeup effects team, such as FX artist Gary Tunicliffe, to ensure the violence felt unsettling and heavy without crossing into splatter territory?
So most of our stuff was working with Tanya, who's our like lead makeup person. She was also doing not only like the regular makeup, but she was doing all the gore makeup. Like she was shooting the blood out when we would have a scene where like blood was flying out and stuff. Like it was very sort of personal and low because the thing about low but I love a good gore movie. Like I'm a huge fan of those Terrifier movies, and,
So am I. Yeah.
yeah, they're just fun gore, and that's another thing where I was just like, well, we're never ever going to be able to outdo those guys. So, like,
Right.
let's just try to make it like emotionally disturbing as opposed to graphically disturbing. So, I mean, we have a couple of shots. We try to show very little. Obviously, there's always budgetary reasons, but it's also I felt like it worked a little bit better to not show as much because people tend to create in their imagination something far worse. Like there's a
Hmm.
scene where we see slashes all over, like those take a lot of time too, right? And
Hmm.
so you try to get just enough so that people know like something serious just happened,
Hmm.
but you don't want to go over the top. It's not. I don't. I like I said, I like those movies where you're kind of cheering at the gore. I didn't want that to be for this particular film. It didn't really work
Hmm.
in that way. I think the scenes should be like quick, violent, and kind of messy. And
Hmm.
I think that's the approach that we took. So she was like really just on the floor spraying up blood here and there. She'd dab a little here. We'd have blood packets go off. It was really just kind of subtle. We tried subtlety was like the key word here.
Yeah, and it was so much more effective. I mean, there's a time and a place for elements of gore, and again, sometimes the audience's imagination is much more horrific than any special effects artist can conjure up.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Now, Sick Puppy had its premiere at Fright Fest in London. What was it like watching an international crowd react to a story shot in Ontario?
Well, I gotta be honest, the British are the best. They're really they really got the film. I didn't expect like I was like I had no idea what to expect, but they actually kind of I think it's probably because it's very similar to their style of humor. It's like the dark humor they kind of got the disturbing aspects as well. Fright Fest is really like just an amazing festival. Now they give you a lot of coverage, and but the audiences are just like ready for anything. You would have films like Bambi the Reckoning playing there alongside some like a really like more artsy, costume dramas, and of course there would be horror, but it'd still be like it was a nice mix. They had something for everybody there,
Hmm.
and then they would have in their certain sections stuff that was just it didn't fit into anywhere, like it didn't fit the mold, and so that we'd have like films like ours, and there was a few others, and they just they were very supportive. I found the audience was, and now that I've got to see the film with the audience again in Los Angeles, the people are laughing in the theaters. I think because I think you were saying before, that sometimes you're just like, I'm not sure whether to laugh at this or not. But when
Hmm.
you're in the theater and you hear other people start to snicker and everything, and then it breaks out, you feel okay to laugh at some of these dark things that are happening in it. And I think that's one of the things that could be lost at home sometimes. I don't think it's completely lost, but I definitely think it's you can really feel that energy a little bit more, especially at Fright Fest where they're like expecting that sort of stuff.
Yeah, you're right. There's definitely a different level of energy in a theater. The Terrifier films, as you mentioned earlier, I saw the first two on home video, and I thoroughly enjoyed them. The third one, I went to a packed movie house to see this, and it was one of the best theatrical experiences I had in a long time, because there was just this, insane energy in the room, and everybody we're all in this communal experience, laughing, screaming, gagging. So yeah, there is definitely a different experience. Now, as a first time feature film director, which by the way, I found very hard to believe because you handled this film like a skillful, established and experienced director. You
Oh,
did an
thank you.
amazing job. Yeah, you did a great job. What is the single biggest piece of advice that you would pass on to other indie horror filmmakers trying to get their scripts financed and distributed through companies like, say, Dark Sky Films?
I would say figure out how much you can find first. There's a lot of directors who are just like, oh, just go out and write stuff that you could, like, if you have an apartment, just write that into it, and I'm just like terrible at that. I just write like farmhouses where we had to search for all that stuff. But I do think you should be like a little bit conscious of the budget. Like you can't go, completely overboard. But just figure out like how much money you can technically get together yourself, because there's a lot of the times you won't be able to find that money. You can maybe start off with a little bit of money, and what would happen with us? We had a little bit, and then we found other investors as we went along, and we had a little bit better situation here because we have good tax credit system in Canada. I don't
Hmm.
know. It depends on the state where
Hmm.
you're going to find that stuff, but it's important to write something that you really, really feel like represents you and that you're passionate about, because it's a long, tough journey. And
Right.
with this one, there's like so many ups and downs. If you don't love what you wrote, or you don't think that this is like, representative of you, don't do it. Don't try to pick up on the trends. Write something that's really personal. Try to make something obviously like you think would appeal to other people, not just yourself. But like
Mhm.
definitely write something that you're passionate about, that you think you can reasonably get the money for, and then do it that way. Because otherwise, like if you're working on something that's like, oh, I think this idea will be cool, you're gonna, when you go through all the hardships of the film, it can be very exhausting, even on a film that you love. And it's much more worth it, because then you'll have a film that has your distinct voice out there, that whether people, you know like it or not, it's going to be a film that represents you. It's going to be something unique.
Right. Well, you mentioned the difficulties and the challenges in getting your films financed and distributed. I really do believe, and I think that films like yours, filmmakers like yourself, and films like Obsession and Hokum, and Backrooms, um, I think that's going to open up a lot of doors for studios and investors to take that chance and to try something that's not, well, here's your typical slasher film and here's your typical whatever, a horror film, to think outside the box and say, take chances with films like yours. you know, there is a revolution going on right now in film. I think, there was all this talk about, cinema is on the verge of collapse in the theaters and so forth. And, horror just stepped in and I think is saving the day. I mean, in getting the audience's attention off of the tried and boring formulas of, Marvel films and so forth, which are great within themselves, but there's something else. And I think, the indie horror film community, you guys are forging the way for more films to be able to come out and find distribution and financing. I mean, it's almost like the 80s all over again.
Yeah, it's a I find it different in a lot of ways, but like horror is always going to be around. It's
Yeah.
one of those like it was one of the first genres ever with like films like Nosferatu, but it's
Hmm.
you have it's something that's never really going to die. It's going to change obviously, like the types of horror, so the types of movies that you know kind of the crazy stuff from the 80s and the 70s. I'm hoping some of that stuff comes back. And I think right now we're getting a lot of just really well-made horror films. I think these are done in a reasonable on a reasonable budget as well. So they're appealing to a lot of people, and I think it's bringing a lot more attention to the films. I just don't want the films to ever kind of leave the gutter either. I think that's what
Hmm.
kind of the appeal of horror. Why I fell in love with it was it's a lot less than mainstream appeal, but I am very happy to see that it's saving the theaters because they really need something right now. I think that it will open up doors to a lot more unique films that are coming up because some of these like Obsession are quite unique and just like compelling to a regular audience. And I think
Hmm.
if they look past some of the gorier aspects of it,
Right.
there's some like genuine like character stuff there.
Yeah, and I think it's also the not the reinvention, but the re-evaluation or taking a different approach to horror. I mean, we got this. Well, kind of not too crazy about this because it's been beaten to death this term, but elevated horror is more investigating and in research and looking into different or alternative aspects of horror that's being brought out. So. And yeah, films like yours are definitely delving into those other crevices of horror that we may not have had enough of or not at all. And it's great. I mean, I'm having a blast. I mean, show running a podcast on horror. I mean, how much, but it's Christmas every freaking day for me here.
Yeah, there's a lot coming. I was surprised. I was like, "Oh, do we really want to release in May?" So I was looking at it.
Right.
I was like, you got what is it? Holcomb, Backrooms, Obsession. There's like a Passenger. I think that came out.
Yeah.
It was a lot. So I was like, oh well. But it's good because there's a lot of like people paying attention to horror as well. So it may actually be a kind of a good time. Uh,
Hmm.
but I think that I'm just like excited that like these type of films get seen at all, but
Hmm.
that some of them are doing quite well. I'm very happy with.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, you've mentioned a rough framework for a Sick Puppy trilogy, which I am crossing my fingers and toes that this happens. I want this to,
Yeah.
I need this to happen. Uh, put it out there. I'll put it in a syringe and I will just put right into my fucking veins. I mean,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
um, now, would a sequel continue the parallel degradation of Charlie, or would you want to pivot to an entirely new perspective?
I think there's no way I would not bring Rachel back. to be part of the Mia character. I think there's a little bit more there. I don't like over explaining characters, but there's some aspects that I really want to explore with that character. But for me, I would say it would always be dependent on Natasha, because I think for me the idea, one of the ideas that was one of the kernels of this was, again, those two killers, in Canada. And one of the most compelling aspects of that was that she got off and
Hmm.
started a new family. She actually moved into the town next to me uh, when I was in university, and started a whole new life with a whole new family. And I think
Hmm.
that the idea of like this suburban, like the idea that was started in Sick Puppy, this person trying to live this suburban life, but obviously being a little bit delusional about the past. I think I want to continue that as seeing what happens after, seeing what happens as she tries to get back into society, and then having, of course, Mia always there to kind of mess things up. So those are kind of like the main. I do have see that as happening over a couple of movies rather than one, but it could change. It could just be one.
Yeah, I'm really hoping and looking forward to this another Sick Puppy film. I
Yeah.
really, really good.
Oh, that's
Now,
great.
yeah, now aside from sequels, you've teased a dark comedy wrestling script and a cannibal romance.
Yeah.
Interesting. Which project for you is taking priority as your next project?
I would say, I mean, I do either one. Like, one is like based off some childhood friends, the wrestling one. That's like, it's like sort of like Step Brothers, but if it was done by Todd Solondz.
Okay.
I think that it's a also it's a dark comedy, but it's definitely lighter than this.
Okay.
And, and it's sort of like uh, kind of a more twisted version of those, like those Judd Apatow movies where you had like the man child, but this would be like a really,
Mhm.
interesting relationship between a man and his mother. And the one that I think is taken is sort of priority right now is the Voracious, which is the cannibal one, and I think that one I'll tease more at a certain
Mhm.
point as things come out, but I think that one has the most sort of potential to let me have a lot more fun. That one's going to be super gory. Like that
Oh.
one, people are just like looking at it, as, this is going to be really gory, and I was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. But again, it's going to have like they're very similar tones. I think all three, where it's going to have a little bit more. A dark comedy, and I think they are a little bit lighter than this movie,
Mhm.
but they're still set with like very serious topics, and the most important thing for me is always to have these really interesting, complicated characters, and I think all of them have that.
Oh, well, and it would fall in line perfectly, the cannibal romance, following, as a follow-up to Sick Puppy. It's
Yeah,
a relationship film, just
yeah,
like the rest of us, except we don't eat we don't eat people, right?
yeah, exactly, exactly.
So now that you've launched Sick Puppy, what creative lessons did get creative lessons that you get from directing this film that you'll definitely carry on into your next project?
I think we were really pretty good at preparing for stuff, but I think it still ended up being very tough. I think I did too much on this film, and that happens often with like directors on lower budget films. I think it's taxing. I think doing the creative stuff and knowing when to let go, I think is very important for any filmmaker, because just use Kubrick as an example. Like that guy just went after like every single aspect, including the posters, and it did not do him good health wise.
Right.
So I think that it's important to kind of let go of certain aspects. Like I'm not saying like, give up on all of them. You have an opinion, but also being like certain things are out of your hands. I think when it comes to being on set though, you know, some people are like, oh, I don't like to storyboard and stuff. I think everyone has their own way of working. I think I would probably storyboard just a little bit more, just
Hmm.
because I'm my really great friends with my DP, Jean-Philippe. He's sort of like the guy that kind of helped get this started, and but we sometimes would clash just because we would have maybe the communication wasn't as good. And I think that with this some storyboards and doing a little bit more of the prep work beforehand, because things change on set, so you throw a lot of that stuff out. But I think it'll create a little bit of a better communication system. I think we learned how to communicate now. I think we've shot a bunch of movies before, but we've never been like put under this much pressure before. So it was nice to kind of figure out a way to communicate better. Yeah, so really just like, being more prepared and also just like letting go of certain things. I think that
Hmm.
those are the two creative lessons I've learned from this.
Okay. Well, let me tell you, you are definitely off to a killer start. No pun
Thank you.
intended. Uh,
Thank you.
and I really can't wait to see what you bring us next. And best of luck on this film
Thank you.
and your future films. Why don't you tell our audience where they can catch Sick Puppy?
Well, right now, so we had a limited theater release in the US, but right now we're currently, I believe, on VOD. So you can find us on Amazon, Apple, I believe Fandango as well. You can find the film there. And in Canada, we have not been released on VOD. We are only doing theaters for now. We're going to be playing at the Rio Theater in Vancouver on June 3rd, and then we'll be moving on to Toronto and Montreal and maybe some other provinces before ending up on VOD and eventually a streaming service.
All right. So folks, definitely check this out. You have to. It's a lot of fun. And if you don't, we will send Brett Geddes to encourage you to watch this film. Okay. He can be quite convincing, this gentleman.
Awesome.
Absolutely. So, Jay, once again, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure and a blast
Thank you
talking
for
to you
having
about
me.
this fun film. Yeah, it's great, and you're always welcome back on the show.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, fantastic. And thank you for listening. And we really hope you enjoyed the show. Please help to support the podcast by giving us a nice 5-star rating, leave us a good review, or another way to support us is simply to subscribe and or follow us on Amazon, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Deezer, Audible, Boomplay, or wherever you get your creepy podcast fix. Also, don't forget to check us out on Instagram, YouTube, Threads, TikTok, and Blue Sky. All of this stuff you can be found in our Linktree link below in the show notes. So make sure you click on it, explore, have some fun. And also, if you enjoyed this special interview episode and want more, just click on the link in the show notes below, labeled Filmjoe Interviews. You can also contact us directly via email to fearonfilmpod@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your feedback. And with that being said, I'm Joe, and this is Fear on Film, where horror lives.